Again, welcome. I'm Joan McGrath. I'm the Executive Director here at Plan of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and I'm joined by my colleague, Kathy Vitello, Director of Operations, and more importantly, a licensed social worker. If you have any questions during this presentation, please feel free to drop those questions into the chat box, and we'll try and answer those at the end. Our learning objectives today are to expand the understanding of what a special needs trust is, understand why special needs trust is beneficial to you and your family, and learn the process of setting up a special needs trust with Plan. I'll start by who we are. Our history dates back to the early 1960s, when a group of parents who had children with disabilities got together to share their concerns, fears, and anxieties about the future of their children. They worried who was going to look out for and advocate for their children once they were gone. These fears and anxieties and concerns continue to be expressed by parents of children with disabilities today. Kathy and I have had conversations with families, and this keeps them up at night. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that this helps a little bit in the the planning process. So Plan is a 501c3 nonprofit. We've been in business for 50 years. As I said, we were founded by a group of parents in the late 1960s who looked for ways to advocate for their children. We were incorporated in 1971. And we are the oldest and largest special needs pool trust in New England. So our mission, and we live this every day, we proudly serve people with disabilities, lifelong or related to illness, injury, or age, helping to preserve assets, to protect benefits, and to live well. And hopefully as we progress through this, we will be able to explain that a little better. So what is a special needs trust? It is a legal document, and there are different options for special needs trusts, which we'll discuss as we move along.
So, and people often say to us, is this legal? I never heard of this. And what it is, in 1993, it was the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, which I always kind of fumble over. But anyway, President Clinton signed this, and through this, it allowed for what they called the establishment of a special needs trust. And these trusts were designed for families and individuals with disabilities to have a way to put funds aside without ever having a negative impact on their benefits. So the funds in a trust are not considered an asset. So when you have Medicaid or SSI, it's means tested, they look at your assets. This way, the funds in the trust are used to supplement the person's needs, and hopefully at the end of the day, we're able to improve quality of life for everybody. So one of the examples that we've used in the past is there was a beneficiary whose parents did their estate planning, and they decided they were going to establish their special needs trust for their daughter, Jane. And they met with their lawyer, they did everything. They named a family member as the trustee, an aunt. And when they passed away, the funds went directly into the trust. And the beneficiary, Jane, who had a diagnosis of autism, lived in a group home. And when her parents passed away, they had the peace of mind that there was going to be somebody there to overlook and make sure that her needs were going to be met. So why do you need a special needs trust? Because for the most part, you want to protect a person's public benefits. There's so many programs that you're not eligible for unless you have Medicaid. So people who are on public benefits need to meet the government poverty guidelines. So in Massachusetts, that would be $2,000 in assets. In Rhode Island, $4,000 in assets. And although public benefits provide many opportunities for individuals, they don't cover everything. And a special needs trust can supplement that, and it won't count as an asset. So you stay under your limits for each state.
So one of the things that we talk about and we've met are people that come to us that are not currently on public benefits. And they wonder, can they set up a trust, right? Which they can. Mm-hmm. They definitely can set up a trust.
Right.
Part of the purpose of a special needs trust is to ensure that the person remains eligible to get on public benefits in the future. So they may not need it right now for whatever reason, but as time progresses, they may need to be on public benefits. And in a lot of cases, as Kathy mentioned, the public benefits are excellent programs that unless you're on public benefits, you can't be part of.
Right. And then, Joan and I see this often when we're meeting with families. Yeah, I just think it's a natural instinct that you're going to name a sibling or a family member as the trustee. And Joan will talk about this in a little while. There's so many rules and regulations around all these benefits. And if you pay for housing, you could lose a certain percentage of your SSI. So you have to be mindful of those distributions. Family members often are not, but more importantly, I think that even in a healthy relationship, money just creates a lot of conflict. In this way, if there's a professional trustee, then it helps preserve the relationship between family members.
Okay, so this is kind of what we were just talking about, the value of public benefits.
So there's been some studies that Joan and I have looked at over the last couple of months. One of them said that the cost of living for somebody that has a disability is a minimum of 28% more income is needed to maintain them in the community than there's other studies that show that depending on what the needs are and what the benefits are, it could be millions of dollars. And according to the CDC, 23% of the people in Massachusetts have a disability. And disability costs, healthcare expenditures through Medicaid and Medicare could be up $12 million thereabouts, roughly. So there is, even though you have to meet poverty guidelines, there's value to having those benefits. But they, like we said, they don't cover everything. So it's nice to have both.
So types of special needs trusts that we offer. So I should begin by saying a special needs trust is for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. And it is, special needs trust is set up to provide or supplement the needs of the person. So the special needs trust, the funds that are in there would not be used to pay for things that are covered by benefits. So if it's a first party trust, the funds in the trust are funded by the person's own money. And there is a Medicaid payback component. So that first party trust is one trustee, one beneficiary, and it's referred to as a D4A. Another type of trust is a third party standalone trust. And again, this is one trust, one beneficiary. And so there is no Medicaid payback, and that's huge. So this allows, again, as they both do, to set funds aside for the person with disabilities for their sole benefit. And then the third type of trust is a pooled trust, which is a D4C. And a pooled trust can either be a first party or a third party. So it has two pieces to it. What a pool means, it's just pool for investment purposes. So it's the person, a group of people have a trust with, it's a sub account within a master trust. But again, it's just for the sole benefit of the person, but also, it's their own individual trust. We call it a sub account.
Right. So as Joan said, the money is pooled for investments. But if I want to buy new clothing, it's going to come out of my sub account, not Joan's sub account.
Right. Correct. Right. But we offer all types of trusts here.
Yeah. And then there is also one other option for the trust, which is the future fund.
Oh, right. Correct. Right. So, and that for a lot of people is the way to go, the future funded. They're not in a position right now to fund a trust, or their child is on their health insurance, so they're not on benefits. So the idea is to set the third future funded trust in place, it'd be a third party so that, you know, if the unthinkable happens and the parents die, or if the grandparents are getting older and they want to fund a trust upon their passing for their disabled child, or they want to work that into their trust, their will, then there's that option to do that.
Right, and then this way, what you're preventing an interruption in benefits. You establish your third-party future funded trust so that the vehicle is there, even though there's no funds in it until the time comes.
Yeah. So we have met people who feel they can't die or retire because they do not think they have enough money to pay for their child. That is a horrible way to feel. And there are many, many parents that feel that way, that they just can never take a break because they don't know what's going to happen to their child, and they don't have enough funds right now to fund a trust for their child. So, you know, one way to do that would be through the future funded, as we spoke about. So that could be funded upon your death through a designated beneficiary form through life insurance, or you, so in that case, you would pay premiums and sign the forms to set it up so that nothing can change that. So once you pass, it would fund that special needs trust. So for first party, that just an example of a way to fund a trust would be through settlements. So if someone is in an accident or something has happened where, you know, they have been some tragic occurrence and they've been awarded a settlement, that money can go into a first party trust and allow them to remain on benefits, as we talked about.
Right, and if somebody didn't do this part of planning ahead of time and funds accidentally went to the person with the benefits, they could still set up their own trust, but it would then be first party and subject to the Medicaid payback.
Right. So if you have any questions about what we presented, we realize it's a lot of information. Feel free to reach out to us. There's no charge to call. Even as I listen to myself speak, I realize that there is a lot to it. And if this is, you know, you're just on the path thinking about, I think I need a special needs trust. I know I need a special needs trust, but I don't know where to go. You are welcome to call us and ask as many questions as you like. We understand that there is a lot of information here. And if we can, we will refer you to attorneys that work in this space and understand it and can help you with those decisions, or even thinking the process through. So now that you know a little bit more, I can't say that you probably know a whole lot more just from this presentation, but how do you choose the right trustee? Kathy made reference to it a little bit about our case that we were talking about, our example. So there's some considerations you need to take into account. Do you want a family member to be the trustee, or do you want a professional trustee? You need to understand what technical skills and knowledge are needed as the trustee. Being a trustee can be a full-time job. Does the individual mind have the time to dedicate to it? And the trustee can be a nonprofit organization such as Plan.
So, you know, we talked about Jane a little earlier, and although her parents had good intentions and they made a really nice plan, it was nice and solid, the person they chose as trustee was a family member. And when they passed, that family member also had a lot of medical issues and felt like she really couldn't dedicate the time to do this. So she had to shop around and talk to all of these different attorneys and banks and whatever. And at the end of the day, she chose Plan for several reasons. One is it was more cost effective than going to a bank, which Joan will talk about in a little while. And secondly, because of the service coordinator piece, which are licensed social workers. And there was another beneficiary that we worked with. And again, her parents made a nice solid plan, and they appointed a sibling as trustee who got married and moved across the country. And so he physically couldn't be here to oversee things. And the beneficiary didn't have a good relationship with the other sibling, and it was really important that she stay close to her sibling. So again, they shopped around and appointed a professional trustee.
So I'm just going to review the pros of using a professional trustee. It removes the responsibility from the family member. As Kathy said, the brother that moved across the country, he didn't have the time to dedicate to administering this trust. So all trust-related investing, accounting, taxes, and other fiduciary reporting are handled in a professional manner by plan or any professional trustee. It's everybody is required to do this as a trustee, but are they? Do they have the ability to do that? That's really the question. So the professional guidance of using trust funds to protect eligibility of benefits, and that's part of being with plan is we have licensed social workers who stay in front of any changes that may happen with benefits, and that's our sole purpose, is to protect the eligibility of those benefits. And having the security of knowing that the funds in the trust are used for the sole benefit of the individual. So if the trustee is, maybe subject to his sister calling him repeatedly saying, I want this, I want this, I want this, it may be very difficult for him to say no, especially if he doesn't realize why he's saying no.
Right.
He doesn't understand the rules.
Right.
There's this happens quite a bit. And then when the brother is put in a place to say no, that causes strife between the siblings.
That's right.
And the person with the disability really does need that family support. So having a outside organization such as Plan be the professional trustee, it allows the siblings to advocate for the disabled person. So there's a lot to be considered when you're appointing a trustee.
And the other thing is Joan and I have encountered this more times than not, where a family will set up their estate and put in their will that they want the funds to go into a special needs pool trust with Plan. However, whoever the executor is in a particular case will decide, nah, I don't think I want to do that. I think I'll handle the funds myself.
Yeah.
So if you set it up in the way that like as Joan talked about earlier, the beneficiary designations work, then you're guaranteed that your wishes are going to be honored.
Right. So we just had that recently where the woman reached out to us and she said, I don't think my friend intended for this trust to be set up for the disabled person. And we had a copy of the will.
That's right.
And the will was very clear that they wanted a special needs trust set up for their child.
Mm-hmm.
And that the person they set as the executor of the will didn't have the right to change that. And
Right.
so that's, you really need to make sure that you're, because you're gone.
Yeah.
The only way you can do that is by putting it in writing and setting things in place. So
Yes.
it takes a lot of planning. So one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit was the annual statements. So here at Plan, we issue annual statements and we take on the tax responsibilities. And we make sure that the statements that are needed for the person's, can you go back one? That the person, the statements that are needed for that person's personal tax returns are provided. And then the money, when it's invested, we use a professional money manager and we evaluate their performance annually at a minimum, usually quarterly, but we make sure that the funds are in good hands. Now you can move it on. So features of the special needs trust with Plan. We require no minimums. So part of what we were talking about is trustees that could be family members or friends or professional trustees. So you could go to a bank and set up a special needs trust with a bank. Or you could set it up with a nonprofit organization such as Plan. So when you set it up with Plan, we have no minimums to establish a trust. Oftentimes with banks, they have minimums of $500,000 or more. Could be $1 million, could be $1.5 million. We don't have that here at Plan. We recommend that you set up a trust for really $10,000 or more, but just so you can get the person can get the most out of the trust. We support beneficiaries through the staff, because we have licensed social workers on staff. These are experienced, compassionate social workers, where banks don't offer that. Other professional trustees don't offer that. You would go through the trust administration, you'd seek disbursement of funds, and that would be by someone at a bank. Where here, you have really compassionate and sympathetic, empathetic people that understand people with disabilities and all types of disabilities of all ages.
Right, and when Joan talks about the cost effectiveness, is we're all inclusive.
Yeah.
You know, it's the check writing, it's the investments, it's the statements, it's the social workers, it's all included in that annual management fee. Where with a bank or an individual trustee, you could be paying up to $300-400 an hour for every phone call, check that's written.
Right, so if you have an attorney as a professional trustee. And in some situations, this is all good, and in other situations, it's not. So it's important that you interview different people and figure out what works for you.
Absolutely. You know, and Joan and I have talked to a couple of other professionals in the field, and sometimes we hear, oh, I don't need a trust because I have a bazillion dollars in the bank and I'm all good.
Yeah.
But if you look at, again, what we spoke about a little earlier about the value of your benefits, somebody who receives SSI over a 40-year period of time could be anywhere between $300 and $400, excuse me, $1,000. So that gazillion dollars isn't going to last very long if you give up your benefits.
And it's important, right? So, so you want to talk a little bit about the service coordinators?
Sure. So to me, this is what makes us really unique
Yes.
from other trustees, is that we are staffed with licensed social workers. And collectively, there's well over 100, probably closer to 200 years worth of experience in this office. And the social workers are very well versed in all kinds of disabilities, working with all ages and public benefits, and having the ability to kind of assess somebody's needs and anticipated needs. So when they met Jane, they went out and they met Jane. She was living in a group home. So they got to know her. They made sure that her needs were being met. She was in a safe, clean environment. And then they started to look at what are her interests and what are her wishes. And she was kind of an artsy type person and was really into music. And, you know, once we knew that all of her needs were going to be met and there were enough funds there, that we were able to get her involved in some music programs, which really, in her particular case, really improved the quality of her life. The service coordinators work with families prior to the trust opening or just when the trust opens to get their perspective on a beneficiary and who their support people are and who their providers are, and all of those important facts. But then they also talk about what are your wishes, what are your goals for the funds? What would you like to see happen after you're gone with these funds? Joan loves to tell the story about the woman with the son who's going to cut his toenails.
Oh, yes, yeah. So this story was a woman that her biggest concern was who was going to trim her child's toenails when she was gone. You know, she would go herself and trim her child's toenails once a week, and she was quite elderly. And so what we would do here is that we coordinate services to make sure, as Kathy said, go out, meet with that person. So each beneficiary is met with by the service coordinator assigned to the life of that trust. And they'll assess the, state of the person. And that would be one of those things that the service coordinator would make sure happened, because that was important to make sure that his physical needs are being met.
Right. And it's not a one-time visit.
No.
This is something that is an ongoing, the requirement is a bare minimum of twice a year, so once every 6 months, but there's many more visits than that in between. And it's constantly reviewing what the needs are, what the anticipated needs are. We also look at who's making the request,
Yeah.
and is it really for the sole benefit of the beneficiary? You know, because sometimes people are vulnerable and could be taken advantage of. And we're looking at, you know, when people find out that there's a trust in place, so somebody lives in a group home setting, and Joan will remember this story. We had somebody that lived in a group home, and the group home found out about the trust, and all of a sudden, the person needed a brand new patio set with 8 chairs and a brand new grill and a brand new shed for those items, and those really are not sole benefit. Sometimes people want to get new durable equipment, specialized wheelchairs, which is perfectly acceptable within the guidelines. However, providers will say, well, I don't feel like filling out the paperwork, so just send the trust this $5,000 bill.
Right, so it should have been paid by Medicaid or
Right.
some other benefit.
Right, and then we would pick up the difference.
Right, yeah, so,
Yeah, so, you know, that's part of what the social worker is doing, is advocating and making sure that the person is protected.
right, exactly, taking care of our beneficiary.
Mhm.
So at this point, with a little information, we're going to move on as if you've decided you want to move forward with plan, and we want to give you a little idea on how to get started. So always feel free to give us a call. We always recommend that people check out our website. Many people, once they've decided they're going to call us, they've been on our website several times. If you go on our website, you can actually see we have a first-party application on the website, and we're working on putting a third-party application up. But there is a lot of information on the website. But once you're ready to call, feel free to call. You can either send us an inquiry through the website saying, you know, I would like someone to call me back, or you can just call us on the phone. So then if you do decide you want to move forward, you have to choose an attorney. You don't have to work with an attorney, but we strongly recommend that you work with an attorney to help you with those application and documents. This is a legal agreement, and you want to be sure that you are getting the guidance that you need and that this is the right step for you. Once the application is complete and you've met with the attorney, you have things moving forward, it's at that point you can deposit funds into the trust, unless it's a future funded trust. And then, you know, that's a separate agreement. You've set it up. And so once, you know, whatever the occurrence happens, someone passes away, that's when the trust funds. But if you set up a first party trust, you deposit the funds into the trust, and then a service coordinator will reach out to you within 2 days and introduce themselves to you and talk about how best to spend the funds in the trust, how to move forward. So should we talk a little bit about the third party? So if it's a third party trust and you want to set this up, the money would come from the donor, which would be the grandparent or the parent.
Right.
And again, we highly recommend you set those up in advance. But they can be set up, well, they have to be set up in advance. They have to be set up by the donor, meaning the parent or the grandparent. So I should have talked a little bit about the first party and the third party related to payback, Medicaid payback.
But yeah, so I think we did touch on it a little earlier. So, you know, if somebody has excess savings or they have a settlement of some kind, could be personal injury settlement, or somebody left them money that didn't realize that it was going to impact their benefits, that would be that first party trust. And that does have the Medicaid payback, which means that at the end of that person's life, Medicaid is entitled to be paid back for anything they paid out during the person's lifetime. So they'll have a lien against the trust. And more often than not, they usually take whatever is remaining in the trust.
So we encourage through the life of the trust that the money is spent wisely to supplement needs, but for other things such as vacation or
Alternative therapy,
exactly
music therapy, art therapy, massage therapy, all those kinds of.
Yeah, so we encourage the proper use of the funds. So, when we look at this spending plans, which are living documents, we address those throughout the year to make sure that the person is using the money. And because I can't tell you how many people, oh, I don't want to use the money. Well, the money is here to be used, and so we encourage people to use the money to make their lives better,
Mhm.
basically. So what does the special needs trust pay for? So as I said, it's a supplemental needs trust. And each benefit has its own set of rules. So this gets back to why it's important to use a social worker or a service coordinator who understands those rules, or a professional trustee that understands the use of the funds and the impact it has on the person's benefits. So I don't know if you want to talk about what we spend the money on.
So you'll see on the PowerPoint that we have some examples. These aren't set in stone. There's no black and white answers because we do have to look at what the person's benefits are. But we supplement, we'll pay co-payments, dental care, could upgrade eyeglasses, could upgrade durable equipment, transportation costs, clothing, personal needs, those kinds of things. But it can also do, as we just said, some of the fun things. Music therapy, art therapy. We do a lot of dog visits with people that they absolutely love. Travel, people who want to take classes. We have some people in schools, computers and that kind of tablets and things like that, cell phones, companions for people who need companions, whether it's on a regular basis. If somebody has PCA hours and you feel like it's really not enough, then we can evaluate maybe supplementing so that they have some more hours, or just somebody that wants to go somewhere but needs to have somebody with them. So it's,
Yeah,
we
it's
get
up for
really
discussion.
creative.
Yes, right. So so the money is spent wisely. Can you imagine a world where you are required to not have more than $2,000 or $4,000 in Rhode Island? How do you live? Medicaid will pay for certain items, or your benefits, whatever that would be, would pay for certain items. But what are some examples that Medicaid won't pay for? It's
So more often than not, Medicaid's going to pull your tooth. They're not going to give you a root canal or an implant or a bridge or anything like that. They're going to just pull it, or braces, those kinds of things. Hearing aids.
so none of these are covered. So how do people pay for those? That's why a trust is important. A trust is a non-countable asset. And the way it's set up now is that you can use those funds and it's not counted against you. That's amazing. So, here at Plan in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island, you can have a trust if you are, young or old. And in some states, you are not allowed to set up a trust if you're over 65. So there's a lot of benefit, and it's important to take advantage of those benefits. What happens to the funds remaining in the trust account after the beneficiary passes away? So this gets back to if it's a third-party trust or a first-party trust. And I'll just remind you, it could be a D4A first-party trust, a standalone third-party trust, or a pooled trust, which has both a first-party and a third-party component. So this speaks to all of them. So we want to focus on, if it's a third-party trust, there is no Medicaid payback. And again, I stress the importance of setting up a third-party trust because that allows you're able to plan. You have that set up in advance and there's no Medicaid payback. So the person can be on benefits and there is no Medicaid payback. The donors can choose where the remaining funds go after the person passes away. So the grandparent can say, I'm leaving money to my grandchildren, including my special needs grandchild. But if that grandchild should pass away, then I want the funds administered to all the other grandchildren. They decide where the money is going to go. With a first party trust, the remaining funds in the trust are subject to Medicaid payback, meaning it's the person's own funds that were set up in their name, And so they can continue on benefits, but once they pass, the money then needs to be paid back to Medicaid. So Medicaid may have $1 million claim, and there's $100,000. After paying remaining administrative fees, that money then goes back to Medicaid. And if there is any money left after, or if the person does not have a Medicaid claim, for some reason they never went on Medicaid, the money that's left in the trust then goes to the people that the beneficiary decides get it. So, we've had cases where, the beneficiary never went on benefits. They put the money in the trust. They were protecting, ready to go on benefits, but for whatever reason, they did not go on benefits. When they passed away, the money then went to his brothers. So, there's a lot of flexibility. Okay, so I guess we had a couple of questions before we started. So let's see. Can trust funds be used to remove a guardian? So what we said was there is no clear answer to this. It depends on the circumstances of the individual. And so in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. This is one that we can't really answer without knowing more details. So we recommend you give us a call. And if we can't answer it, we'll give you the name of at least 3 attorneys that you can call to ask that question. But yeah, we need more details.
And what expenses can't not be paid by the trust? So alcohol, gambling, pornography, ammunition, weapons, and beneficiaries are not allowed to give gifts with the trust, unfortunately. And we do not give beneficiaries cash. We don't ever want them to have the appearance that they have access to the actual funds in the trust, the cash, because then it will become an asset. But we do pay for the goods and services on their behalf.
Yeah, that's required. They cannot have access to cash from the trust. If they were, that would be in violation and they would lose their benefits.
That's right.
Could lose their benefits.
And then the only other restrictions would be benefit-based,
Yes.
such as supplemental Social Security income has a whole set of rules. Subsidized housing has a whole set of rules. So
yeah. So you need to be on top of that. Is there a trustee that will hold a disabled adult's house in the trust? Okay, so this is a conversation that you need to discuss with your legal counsel. So every situation is different, and I think this would be definitely something you need to speak with your own attorney about. But feel free to call us, and we can try and talk about your particular situation. Do you want to get the next one, Cal?
is there a difference in the type of eligible expenses allowed between a first and third party trust? Not really.
No.
They're really treated basically the same.
Yeah. Really, the difference would be eligible expenses based on the benefit the person is on.
Right.
Yeah. Will you go over the cost of your services? Yes, sure. So we have a 3% fee, which is taken quarterly, and it's based on whatever the balance is for the trust, for the sub-account. And it is all-inclusive, as Kathy said. It covers trust administration, the investment of the funds, and the service coordination piece. So the investment of the funds, if you were to go to a bank, say, that could be 1.5 points just alone to cover the investment of the funds. So because in this case, now, as I said, you could choose to do your own individual, we take it all, but because of the cost, the efficiencies that we can have by having it pooled, we actually pay less than other banks charge. It is held at a bank. And, right now we have 730 beneficiaries with 62 million in assets. And because we have such a large dollar amount, we actually end up paying a little less than you would if you were to go by yourself and put it in a bank. So that there's that portion and the trust administration piece, which again, that could be another point. And then the service coordination. So all of that is covered in the 3% fee. So that's that fee. And then to join our trust, there's a one-time enrollment fee. So if it's a third-party trust, it's $500. And if it's a first-party trust, there's two fees. I mean, one fee, but it depends if you are using an attorney or not using an attorney. So it's $750 or $600. So it depends on which, if you have an attorney involved or not.
And the Ernst & Young fee.
Oh, yes, and then we have an annual tax fee, which, let me see off the top of my head, I'm trying to think what that is.
217 for the bars.
Okay, so it's annually, there's only one.
Yeah.
It'd be $217
For first party,
for a first party,
351 for.
$351 for a third party. I'm sorry, we can give you details. It's also, well, I'm not sure it's on our website, but I'll make sure that goes up on
Yeah,
the
and the
website.
reason that we're hesitating is that Ernst & Young does that. So that's where that fee originates, and it changes, it's subject to change, I should say, so.
Right, annually, yeah. So we don't make any money on that. We just pass that fee along. We don't, it's not really, plan doesn't take any portion of that. That's just and you'd have to pay to have those forms prepared by any accountant if it was a trustee. Any trustee would have to do that. So again, I feel like the cost that they pass along is very competitive. So it's not, you're not paying more for that service, but you're getting a good service. And that's it. That's all the fees that I can think of right now. So again, you could call, the beneficiary could call every day, or they could call once a month. It's the same fee. So we encourage people to reach out to their service coordinator as many times as they want. Depending on the disability, some people call every day,
20 times a day.
20 times a day. And then other people, we have to reach out and say, hey, we need to have an appointment to meet you and see you, just so we know that they're okay. So,
And do you have a social workers on the Cape? We do have a social worker on the Cape.
Yeah.
We have social workers that cover the entire state of Massachusetts and Rhode Island.
and Rhode
So-
Island, yeah. So we actually have 10 social workers on staff. And we, so we definitely have someone that works on the Cape.
And I think it's important to note too, there's always a social worker available during the week.
Yeah, oh, anytime, yeah. I guess that's it. Is that all the questions? Okay, so this was a quote from one of our beneficiaries. And, your act was not just a gesture of kindness, but also of human understanding of the human condition. The knowledge that all of you understand me has moved me deeply. This meant a lot to us. And this is a working with the social workers, but not just the social workers, the staff in general. We have people on hand that deal with disbursement requests, but really the primary focus is the service coordinator who they're the person that you have first contact with. Okay, can you remove the questions? You just minimize it. Yep. Okay, so as I said before, there is no charge for calls. Call us. You can call as many times as you want. We are here and we are, we should respond within 2 days at the most, but we're happy to take your calls. And we realize this is a major decision. This is your loved one. This is your money. And these are not easy decisions. And it can take a long time to figure out, is this the right decision for you? So call us and we'll try and answer as many questions as we can, and we'll steer you in the right direction. If we can't answer the question, we'll find someone that can, but we'll do our best to help you with this because we do understand.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And our phone number's up there. Check our website out. And
Or email if that's easier.
yeah, so it's about 1:45 now. So I guess we'll let you have the rest of your day and we appreciate your joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.